Finally, the big announcement we've all been waiting for. Everyone around the nation has been waiting for this move to happen. The Orlando Predators are back in the Arena Football League. Why? What did you think I was talking about? It's not like it's the whole rundown here. Damian Lillard talk, because it's the only thing going on, apparently, on today's Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is September 26, 2023. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, it is another day and another rumor just roping the Orlando Magic in. We'll talk about what was said directly in the report, since Magic fans are talking about and imagining things. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about when the Magic will decide to be heard. And just for fun, we'll put together a Damian Lillard trade. We'll see if we can put one together that makes sense, because the exercise is valuable for other things. We'll get to that later on in the show. But before we do that, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started today. I don't want to be talking about rumors, guys. I really don't. I'll just put this front and center, bury the lead as much as I can. I don't think anything we're really talking about over the last 3 episodes now is particularly real. There's a good exercise to be done in this, which I will partake in, but I don't want to be talking about rumors. Today I wanted to talk about the backup power forward question. That's the stuff I get into. That's the stuff I really love. I'm covering UCF for the I'm streaming UCF games for the AP, and I was at Gus Malzahn's press conference this morning. One of the other reporters, who's going to be at Magic Media Day, asked me about what I thought about the Magic, and I just went into this whole thing is like this. The bench is just so exciting because Jamal Mosley can go in so many different directions. I got really, really excited about it. Like, we're almost here, folks. We're 1 week away from the opening of training camp. Like, let's go. Let's talk some basketball. But I'm here talking about rumors. Not the game that we love, not the game that we live and breathe for. I'm talking about rumors. I get it. Conversation starter. And look, as I said yesterday, when something gets reported by a legitimate reporter, there are some illegitimate reporters out there. When it gets reported by a legitimate reporter, I do not doubt that the reporter was told by someone what they're reporting. I never doubt the veracity of the reporter reporting what he's reporting. He was told that. He is reporting what he was told, or she was told. Or they were told. What I sometimes do question, though, is, okay, and this is what I always say about rumors. So let's get good practice in this before the deadline here. Always ask what's beneath it. Why is this being leaked? Who is leaking it? All that jazz. So let's dive into today's rumor. Michael Grange of Sportsnet, a publication up in Canada, up in Toronto, had this big, long article published in the afternoon, asking, Raptors are in the mix for Damian Lillard, but is it a good idea? The substance of the report, and look, it's great to read it at sportsnet.ca. You can find it on their NBA page. The Raptors, like they did with Kevin Durant, are trying to kind of wedge themselves into these superstar conversations. They're willing to risk losing a superstar in a year. They did it with Kawhi Leonard. They won a championship. They're straddling, the Raptors is an organization, and listen to our good friends at Locked On Raptors. The Raptors as an organization believe they have still something to build with as the remnants of that 2019 team are slowly chipping away. They've got some good young talent. They're not ready to rebuild. That's not a market that's susceptible to rebuilding. And while it appears they explored a Pascal Siakam trade, just like at the trade deadline, it appears they're more interested in buying. It appears they're more interested in trying to go after Damian Lillard. And with no one else kind of moving the market with the Miami Heat, the Raptors appear to be a team that's stepping into that void. Mark Spears of ESPN confirmed this, saying that if Lillard's getting traded this week, and some people think it's going to happen this week, the week before training camp, if Lillard's getting traded this week, the Raptors are the favorite over the Heat. As Magic fans, I'll let you debate whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't want to see the Heat win any more championships more than you do, but I have the Raptors pegged as one of the teams the Magic could knock out of the playoffs. So if the Raptors suddenly get good, the Heat are going to be in the playoffs no matter what. If the Raptors suddenly get good, that's one less spot for the Magic to take in the postseason. Just some food for thought there. Embedded deep within this article, is this paragraph. I want to read it verbatim, a little bit out of context. So the paragraph itself, I think, is fine, but it's a little bit out of context. So please, sportsnet.ca/NBA, you'll find the article there. It's Raptors are in the mix for Damian Lillard, but is it a good idea? Here's the quote. Quote, by all accounts, the Raptors seem at least reasonably confident they can maneuver their way to the front of the line past the Miami Heat, Lillard's preferred destination, and ahead of a team such as the Nets, who have the draft picks to get something done if Portland is open to taking on the last 2 years of Ben Simmons' contract. The Orlando Magic could also make themselves heard, per sources, end quote. Again, the first part of that, virtually confirmed by Mark Spears. I think we could all sit here and say the Toronto Raptors are in the mix for Damian Lillard. There's reporting from a local reporter in Toronto, a national reporter in Mark Spears. There's enough to say the Raptors are really in this thing. This one line, though, about the Magic. The Magic could also make themselves heard, per sources. That is a weird statement. And look, I have in the past, I am not a breaking news reporter. I will sit here and say that. I don't like politicking. I'm not, I'm big in the blog world. I'm big in the podcast world. I'm not big in the reporting world. No one is placing stories with me. I've been trying to line up an interview with the player leading into camp for a little while now. There's been some email issues on that front. I'm not, I would love to have more players on here. That's absolutely something I should probably be doing more of, but I'm not going out there seeking information. I'm a games guy. I despise rumors. I despise the rumor mongering. I don't think it's necessarily bad for the game, but I do agree with the criticism that the offseason, the trade deadline become more interesting than the games, and that negatively affects the league. As much as it's as Jeff Waltman likes to say, it is a sugar high. We're talking about it. I understand it's important. I understand that we have to talk about it. I'm a games guy. But when I have in the past gotten information, I am always very careful with my wording. I want to, use and mimic the words of the people I'm quoting so that, the meaning that they gets from it. If I need, when I've gotten this information, I've maybe asked for some clarification of what they mean by something if they're speaking in kind of these vague terms. But those instances have been very, very rare in my professional career. Again, that's not been my focus. I am a games guy. Give me a game. Let me tell you what happened in the game. That's my approach. That's what I love about basketball. I don't love all this other outside stuff. But this is a really, really interesting phrasing. Saying the Magic, I want to again make sure I get it right, could also make themselves heard. My instinct, and again, this is just me speculating at this point, my instinct is to say, okay, maybe the Magic are involved in this as a third team facilitating, maybe that's what these teams want them to be. Maybe Portland is looking around at the market and saying, Orlando has a lot of things that we would like. They have the assets that we want to make a trade. Please, Jeff Weltman, speak up. Again, maybe they're probably asking for more than the Magic are willing to give. They're probably looking for a Franz Wagner, which the Magic are not trading. We'll get to the parameters for what a Damian Lillard deal would look like, and I'll run back stupid comments I made in June. Again, I don't like trades. I'm bad at trades. Go look at my Locked On mock draft. I'm bad at trades. I don't think I was that crazy in the Locked On mock draft, but y'all did. I'm bad at trades. So we're gonna try that out a little bit. But what does it mean that the Magic could be heard, or could also make themselves heard? Again, the way I read this is that whoever spoke to Michael Grange, is either using the Magic as a boogeyman, which I surmise that was happening a lot during the trade deadline, is using the Magic as a boogeyman to try and get traction, to try and up an offer, saying, hey, the Magic are fishing around. Everyone around the league knows the Magic have assets to burn at this point. Or maybe it's a statement of the Magic have the pieces to make a deal happen if they pick up the phone and make an offer. This, to me, brought up an interesting thought experiment, or an interesting thought. When will the Magic be heard? When will the Magic put themselves into these conversations? And that's ultimately the question we need to ask about this rumor. Because again, I don't think the Magic are chasing Damian Lillard. I don't. I don't think the Magic are chasing anyone. I think the Magic like their roster. They like what they're growing. They want to see how it plays out. They're not fishing right now. They're napping against a tree ready for the season to start. They're not fishing. But soon they're going to have to. And I think that's the point we need to draw out. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season today. FanDuel's an official partner of the NFL. So, like I said, I don't think the Magic are chasing after Damian Lillard. I don't think the Magic are chasing after Buddy Hield. I don't think a Cole Anthony trade is imminent. Those are the kind of three rumors that have occupied our attention for the last 3 episodes of this show. I don't think the Magic are fishing right now. Like I said on Friday's episode when we talked about the Buddy Hield rumor that popped up, this Magic team purposefully valued continuity. This Magic team purposefully sought to keep this group together. Essentially, we were all eager for an offseason of heavy action, of a Fred VanVleet, of a Gary Trent Jr. We talked about those guys. I talked about Dwight, on smaller scales, Dwight Powell. We expected an offseason of some action. And instead, we got a very quiet offseason. The Magic didn't spin off one of their draft picks. They used them both. They didn't get rid of, they got rid of Bol Bol. That was the big subtraction from the team. Orlando, and if you listen to Jamal Mosley talk, and who knows, maybe it's spin, but the Magic seem to really believe that how they finished the season was just scratching the surface of what they can be. They believe that the best way for a young team to develop and to grow is through consistency. You have a consistent message, consistent coaching, consistent teammates. That's going to help a young team grow. And the Magic showed enough last year to give them another shot. To say, okay, you're young, you'll get better. Show us what you can do in an 82-game season. That is part of the experiment. That is part of what this team is thinking about at this juncture. They don't know what they need. Like, that's been my big point all offseason. And what I think kind of the mission statement for the season is, the mission statement for the season is not to make the playoffs. That is a short-term goal for sure, and we expect them to do that. But that's not what the Magic need to get out of the season. The Magic ultimately need to come out of the season understanding, okay, what do we actually have in Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner? And what do they need to be successful? And shooting's obviously one. But once you've identified that, then you start to build and develop for beyond. Then you start to add the pieces to the puzzle. Then you start to add those players to the mix. The Magic clearly either A, didn't see the opportunities out there for them to do so this summer, or B, felt like they didn't have the answer and didn't want to commit salary and didn't want to commit assets to do it. We talked about with Cole Anthony, this is a prove-it year, not just for Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz as they enter their free agency next summer. It's a prove-it year for everybody to tell you, where do you fit in the bigger picture, in the bigger puzzle? Where do you fit around, the two twin sons of Tatooine that are Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner? How do you revolve around them? That's the ultimate question we're asking. I wrote, we'll get to this. That might be tomorrow. Honestly, let's do it tomorrow. We'll save the backup power forward for later in the week. Tomorrow we will talk about short and long-term questions on this roster, because I have plenty, and it's not that I dislike players on this roster. There are real questions we need to ask as this team takes the step up. And so that's the question I ask in the rundown here. The Magic could be heard in this Damian Lillard discussion. Well, when are the Magic going to be heard? When are they going to be aggressive and put some of those chips into the table? Weltman clearly decided this was not the summer to do it. Again, if the Magic were really interested in Damian Lillard, they would have done it in June and July. Why wait this long? Why give yourself only a week to convince Dame, like, hey, come to Orlando. We're just 3 hours north of Miami. We're just as cool. No. What we're really asking is, when are the Magic going to be ready? Last summer we had this big debate about Donovan Mitchell. Remember that? We had this big debate about Donovan Mitchell. And even then, a lot of the same kind of people who, honestly, a lot of the same arguments are being made as they were last summer. This is a young Magic team. Yeah, they probably need an all-star. They need a veteran who could stabilize the group and elevate them up another level. And don't be mistaken. If the Magic got Damian Lillard, just like if they got Donovan Mitchell, they would be a playoff team. The question the Magic are looking for is, do they want to be a flash in the pan, or do they want to be a long-term deal? Like, let's be real. Donovan Mitchell to New York rumors have started up again. There's concern that Mitchell's not long for Cleveland. Cleveland took a gamble. I think it was the right one to take for them where they're at. Orlando wants to be where Cleveland was to make that kind of a risk, to make that kind of a gamble. That's where we're heading this season. For the Magic to be heard, for the Magic to get involved, to feel like it is time to risk some assets, to put some chips in the middle of the table. For the Magic to do that, they've got to be heard on the court first. And that's been my big point. Last year with Donovan Mitchell to this year. The Magic have to prove themselves on the court. They have to prove that they're not just potential, that they are a playoff team. And they started doing that a little bit last year. They certainly could have done some more this summer. If they wanted to, if the opportunity arose. Maybe it didn't. I would argue as well it's about who as much as when. But to be sure, that when is coming. Orlando's got decisions to make. They've got a roster to build, and now they have to figure out who they are. I don't think Lillard's the right guy. And it's not because he's a bad player. He's a great player. He's one of my favorite players to watch in the league. Just one of the coolest dudes. Say what you want about the way he's handling his exit from Portland. It's not been good. Frankly, it's been Dwight-esque in the wrong, not in the absolute wrong ways that Dwight Howard left, but it has not been handled particularly well. I think that Lillard would undoubtedly elevate this team into a surefire playoff team, not a play-in team, a playoff team. They'd be top 6 in the East. But I can't blame Damian Lillard, or I can't blame the Magic for thinking, okay, we're going to pay a lot of the money for Damian Lillard, which is fine. He's worth it. For the twilight of his career, when we're going to need at least a year, maybe 2, to get championship good. And I do have concerns, and I do think it is a problem, or it is a risk to throw your players into the deep end of having to compete for a championship and having championship expectations. Because let's be real, you're trading for Damian Lillard right now. He is expecting a championship in the next 2 years. I don't think this team is ready for that pressure. I think this team is ready for the pressure of trying to make the playoffs and trying to do all that. I don't think this team is ready for championship pressure. I think Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner and a lot of these guys still need just a little bit of room to make mistakes. Maybe I'm wrong. I had people tell me with the Donovan Mitchell stuff that, you're worried about culture. You're worried about those expectations. Well, your top player sets your culture. And, a Damian Lillard comes in, he will raise everyone's level up. I have no doubt about that. But again, he's kind of made it clear where he wants to be. And I don't think he'd be thrilled. I don't know what's going to happen, but you're giving up a lot and you're not quite sure you're getting a lot in return. I don't know. But this is the main point. The Magic will have their day. And what's been clear as the Magic's name keeps popping up in all these rumors, Van Vliet in the summer, Mitchell last year, or Van Vliet in the spring, Mitchell last year, Lillard now, is that the Magic have the tools to get it done. They have the tools to be players in these trade discussions. The question is when, and the question is who. And Orlando is more than likely, if everything goes as we think it will go this season, next summer could very well be when the Magic make that big push. When the Magic no longer go from a team that is rumored to be interested or rumored as a team that could do something. Because again, that's all this is. They're not actually doing anything. And go from a team that actually makes the move. Just for fun, I think we should discuss what a Damian Lillard trade would look like. We'll talk a little bit about that and what the Magic actually have on the table coming up here in just a moment. So, I hate fake trades. I want to put that out right now. I think fake trades are usually bad. Usually one side is overvaluing their stuff more than others. I'm a big fan of frameworks for trades, where you say, okay, these pieces fit together. Maybe there's some details I need to fill in, but there's something there. For sure. But I do think this process or this exercise, and this is, I think, what's more important than when my writers at Orlando Magic Daily put together fake trades, I usually tell them, I don't care about your fake trade. Don't break down why this fake trade is good or bad. Explain to me what the Magic are getting out of it, why the Magic do it, why these are the players you offer. The process is more important. Again, my fake trades during the Locked On mock draft were terrible. I'll admit that. I thought they were smart at the time. As Jeff Holtman always says, your mock drafts change every day. That day maybe I made some bad decisions, but I spent a whole podcast. You could go back to June and listen to it. I did a whole podcast explaining my reasoning behind it. And I hope that would like give you some understanding of what I was thinking. And look, Magic ended up drafting Jet Howard. So my Grady Dick pick at 6 didn't seem as crazy as maybe it did. And whatever. That's water under the bridge. Again, who cares about fake trades? Who cares? Over the summer leading up to the draft, I did a podcast with Mike Richmond of Locked On Blazers. You can go back and listen to that. That was very draft heavy, so maybe it's not as relevant now, but we did do a segment where I said, hey, and I texted him beforehand and said, hey, I got to ask, let's talk Damian Lillard. Because, because even then we understood the Magic were a team that had the tools and the potential to get it. And I think we both agreed at the end of it that there probably wasn't a deal there. I got into hot water because I said, Damian Lillard is the kind of player that you have to consider everything for. He is that good of a player. And if it's a 1-year thing and that's all that matters, Damian Lillard is probably better than any player the Magic have just on 1 year. Over 5 years, Paolo's certainly better. Franz is probably better over 5 years. So I'm not going to rehash what got me in trouble that day. Again, I'll say this. Paolo and Franz are non-stars. They are not available in any trade. Take them off the board. And if that kills any chance that the Magic have to get a player like Damian Lillard, then there's no deal to be had. And I think that's the general assumption I've seen is that if Portland's going to make a deal, they're going to want to get off Yusuf Nurkic's money. I think the one thing we talked about in the podcast with Mike Richmond was trading 6 and Wendell Carter for 2 and Nurkic. And I was like, I like Scoot Henderson a lot, but I didn't like him that much. I didn't think Nurkic really solved many of the Magic's problems. If anything, you lose the versatility as well as the contract value of Wendell Carter, and still have the injury problems that Wendell Carter has that concern me. Nurkic has a long track record of injuries, unfortunately. And while I think I kind of conceded that, he's more of the traditional center that works in the playoffs, I don't know if I don't see the difference enough to make me want to make that deal. And so I think I ultimately passed on his offer to move up to 2 in that draft. That's probably still what's on the table. It feels like Portland is looking for a lot of future assets, which again, the Magic have, some draft picks, and then to unload Nurkic's money. So they would probably really want Wendell Carter in a Magic deal. If Franz and Paolo are off the table, they're going to want to swap Nurkic for Carter. That doesn't solve many of the Magic's problems, unfortunately, because the biggest issue the Magic have in trying to make a trade for a Damian Lillard is to get to Lillard's salary, because they're not over the cap, but they're bumping up against it. They only have a couple million under the cap. They're clear of the salary floor, of the payroll floor. So what do the Magic have to offer? Well, I don't think they can trade Joe Ingles till December 15th. So that's kind of off the table. Gary Harrison, $13 million is certainly going to help you get there. Jonathan Isaac at 17.4, probably, that would get you there. Does Portland want Jonathan Isaac? I mean, his contract is really easy to get off of, but that's not the long-term asset they're looking for. I imagine, do the Blazers want Jalen Suggs? They're pretty stacked at guard, but that'd be coming home for him. That'd be going back to the Northwest. Making a Damian Lillard trade for the Orlando Magic is just really hard. It's hard to make the salaries work. It's hard to find the right mix of value that Portland's looking for and the right mix of what Orlando is willing to give up. I don't know if it's there, to be perfectly honest. They're probably not looking for Cole Anthony as he sets for restricted free agency. They got plenty of money already invested in Anthony Simons, as well as now Scoot Henderson. So he's probably off the table. Cap room ain't going to do them much. They're getting ready to rebuild. The Magic would probably have to throw in a couple draft picks. Orlando would insist on the 25 Denver pick. Portland would probably be looking for this year's first, maybe another first in 26. I don't know. Again, my big thing is frameworks for a deal. Like the Buddy Hield trade, the Buddy Hield thing. The Buddy Hield thing, there is a framework for a deal. Cole Anthony and the 25 Nuggets pick for Buddy Hield, and give us a second. I don't know. But Buddy Hield for Cole Anthony, that's 19 to 13 million. So, maybe the Magic would have to add some more salary on their end. Again, maybe that's just Caleb Houston, who knows? Or Chuma KK. There's a framework for a deal there. Now, or Buddy Hield for Gary Harris even works. Buddy Hield for Gary Harris, and again, like Chuma KK, that works. There is a framework for a deal there. So that's more likely to me than Damian Lillard. I just don't see a framework for a deal. If Portland, for what Portland's trying to accomplish and what Portland's trying to do in these deals, it's not there. So sure, the Magic might want to be heard, and their best offer probably isn't going to beat Toronto, who's probably offering OG Anunoby, I imagine. It's not going to beat Miami offering Tyler Hero. Again, as far as young assets go, it's not beating those guys. Who Orlando is willing to give up that Portland would want is frankly very low. And again, just sitting here thinking about it, do the Magic really want to give up Cole Anthony? Sure, I will. I'm a big Gary Harris guy. I will believe that Gary Harris is very available. That, when we get to the trade deadline, if the Magic are making these trade negotiations now, like Gary Harris, Joe Ingles, and I love Joe Ingles. I'm really excited for Joe Ingles to be on this team. That $11 million contract is going to be valuable if Orlando's looking to flip that into something long-term. Flip that into a younger, long-term piece for this team. That's partially why it was signed. The framework to make it work with Portland, it just isn't there. There is no there. Like the Indiana thing, but Buddy Hield for Gary Harris, there needs to be some pieces added, but that makes sense for both sides. At least on its face. Or, a Buddy Hield for Cole Anthony, if that's the direction you want to go. I'm not saying the Magic do any of this, but that's the start of something. You can have a conversation about that. I'm not sure there is a real conversation to be had for Damian Lillard, where the Magic give Portland what they're looking for to make it happen. And some of that is the Magic probably aren't ready to give up on a lot of these players. They're probably not ready to give up on Jonathan Isaac. They're probably not ready to give up on Cole Anthony or Markelle Fultz or Wendell Carter or any of these guys. And like I said, that's kind of what this season is for figuring out, is who actually is going to be part of this thing as we move forward. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them are still on podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. Be sure to check out as well the Orlando Magic Hub. I posted a new playbook video on my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, talking about Paolo Banchero and his need to find efficiency with his dribbling. Very, very fun stuff. Very, very nitty-gritty stuff, the kind of content that I'm looking to make on the Orlando Magic Hub. You can find the link to that article and learn more about the Orlando Magic Hub on my Twitter account at PhilipRR_OMD, or go to patreon.com Search for Orlando Magic Hub. You'll see my smiling face with the Amway Center behind me. You'll find all that great stuff there as well. Definitely look into it as we get ready for the start of the season. I'm going to be posting a lot more content there as well. But that's going to do it for me today. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, for my everyday crew, we will talk about short and long-term questions for 3 key players on the Orlando Magic. Players that, we talked a little bit about here today, who have a lot to prove for this team. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.